let's talk about combat and role-playing. That's right, I said combat and role-playing, not combat or role-playing. These two ideas are not mutually exclusive. Hey everybody, my name is Gregory. This is 1 in 20 D&D. Welcome to D&Daily number 239. I talk about role-playing games, especially Dungeons & Dragons, and video games, and all kinds of geek stuff here. I do focus heavily on Dungeons & Dragons, which is why it's called 1 in 20 D&D in the first place, and I like to celebrate the highs and the lows of playing this amazing game. If that sounds interesting to you, thank you for being here. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you get those alerts when the new videos post. Now, back to the subject at hand. Let's talk about combat and let's talk about role-playing. This is something I talk about all the time. I love both. I love both aspects of these games. In fact, role-playing is in the title of role-playing games, right? It's part of the subject. It's part of this hobby, right? So it has to be a part of the game on some level, at least, I think. And I love the combat element. I love the strategy. I love thinking about ways to use my skills, abilities, weapons, magic, etc. in combat. And out of combat, but in combat. So how do we put those things together? The reason I even had this thought today was that I read a great tweet from a couple days ago by the DM behind the screens. I don't have that actual tweet, so this time around I'm not actually going to link it in there. It was just something, the conversations, including that tweet, but also other conversations that I've had with him and others have just sparked this thought in my mind over the past few months. It's sort of been growing over time where I feel like there's a misunderstanding, and some people believe that it's like either or. There's you either like combat or you like role-playing. You either engage in combat or you engage in role-playing, as if the two can't exist at the same time. And I beg to differ. In fact, I would go as far as to say in our game, for certain, our Wednesday night game in the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, I still keep messing up that name. Anyway, in the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, our Wednesday night game right now, everyone at the table, I think, in my opinion, is doing both. They're role-playing while they engage in combat. And what do I mean by that? I'm gonna be pretty specific and give you an idea and an overarching sort of understanding. I also want to say that, hey, I'm not just saying that we're the only ones that do that. Critical Role does it amazingly well. I've seen it on many different other streams. So what is role-playing? What does it look like when you're role-playing while you're engaging in combat? Well, here's one fantastic example. This is a tiny bit of a spoiler. It's from our Wednesday night game. It's so beautiful and powerful and incredible that I really want to use this as an example. The DM behind the screen, who I mentioned, who sort of inspired this tweet in the first place, he's playing a ranger. And if you know anything about rangers, you know that one of their hallmarks, one of their go-to abilities, spells, etc., is the hunter's mark. Well, in this game, when Clay is working as Longtooth, playing the character of Longtooth, what he says is, rather than saying, I cast Hunter's Mark on that enemy, he says this. He said, I'm using my words, but this is essentially what he says. He says, a ghost-like image, an ethereal image of a small boy falls from the sky and lands on the back of the creature. That's how he describes using Hunter's Mark. That is genius. This is brilliant role-playing. It's so evocative. It's this unbelievable imagery And not only is it unbelievable imagery, I mean, it's evocative. It's like emotionally evocative. As soon as we found out what that symbolizes, why that's happening, which we had hints of, now we're drawn in more and want to role play more out of combat to find out a little bit about like what's going on. Like, what does this mean? Why is that happening? That's amazing. Now, not everyone is maybe going to be that creative, and that's fine. Simple ways to roleplay combat, to roleplay during combat, are to actually like yell things out to your team, yell things out to the other players as your character. Like, say to the other characters, like, I got this one, you get those. Or something like something simple like that. That's role playing in character. You could also do more interesting things where you like maybe you engage your enemy by like trying to taunt them or tease them, or maybe you cast insults at them, and that's how, if you're a bard, you use your vicious mockery or something, or you come up with rhymes and you spout rhymes, and that's your vicious mockery, that's your cutting words, that's your your spells and so forth. There's so many different ways to actually engage in role playing during combat. I don't think they need to be excluded from each other, and I would say that it's absolutely more fun and more true to this amazing hobby that you should stay in character while combat is happening. Yeah, we're going to be rolling dice, and yeah, you're going to be talking a little bit between the DM and maybe even between yourself and some of the other players, but ultimately you can always jump back into character to quip or have a great one-liner. Think you could be good old John from Die Hard, and or Arnold in any of his movies, or any kind of things like that. Those things, although they might be a little tongue-in-cheek, a little cliche and silly, sometimes those kind of things make for great role-playing moments. Even if you're just dark and brooding and you want to just describe the shadows that emanate from your armor or from your eyes or your robes or your hands or whatever, get into it, have fun, and describe what you're doing as you're doing it, how your character does that thing uniquely. That's how you role play in combat. And I'm going to share one more example that I saw years ago. I was watching a YouTube video. This was some incredible D&D. There were some incredible people in this game. I don't know everyone in it, but I know it was Christopher Perkins. I know Ed Greenwood was in the game, and I believe there was a couple of other amazing individuals in this game. And one of the gentlemen at the table decided to describe his spells that his wizard was casting, and he always used birds to describe them. And that is, so if he cast Magic Missile, it wasn't just Magic Missile. It was, 4 or 3 little sparrows of, sparkling energy flew out and towards his enemy to then, strike the enemy with their talons and beaks. That's cool! I mean, that's amazing. Or how about like the feather, a giant owl appears above the creatures and flaps its wings, and feathers, shining, sparkling feathers fall from the owl, and now you need to save, and guess what? That's how I'm casting Fairy Fire or something. That's not exactly what he did, but I want to give you the flavor of what he did so that you can go into your games and take those ideas and make them yours. That's how you bring role-playing and combat together. And I want to hear about it. So make sure you comment on this video or any other video and tell me about your antics. Tell me how you bring role-playing and combat together and make a beautiful union. I'll see you all tomorrow. Keep rolling 20s until then, and remember, it's your game. Play your way. Regardless, now this goes across any system. I want to start over.